It is time for Matt Chat. I am very excited today because we have a fan favorite, one of my favorite players from season 49. Steven is here to talk about episode 2 and preview episode 3 of season 50. Hi, Steven. What's up?
What's up, Tag? First off, thank you for having me on here. I'm a huge fan of you as a human, but also of the specialists in this show. So it's a blast. I never know whether to look at the webcam or myself, so my eyes will be wandering. But just know that my heart is fully here for you all that are listening in right now. I'm
Love.
stoked. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Well, first, I'm wondering, how are you feeling about season 50 overall right now?
I'm loving it. I think especially coming after being on the show, it's a very different experience watching yourself and knowing what's happening. And I'm just a big Survivor fan. So I just like good gameplay. I like good characters. I like good drama. And so this season has as it should be, it's season 50, returning season. I think we've been getting a lot of good gameplay, but also a lot of good, just memorable moments. And we're only 2 episodes in. So I'm loving it. And it's like a little less anxiety inducing when I'm not the one that's about to be shown.
That is a very real thing. I feel like you're so right with how many memorable things are happening so far. 2 episodes in, we start this episode off in a pretty memorable way. Going into this episode, I was like, what would make Emily divorce Christian Hubicki? Nothing. What would make that happen? And it turns out it has nothing to do with the game at all. It is an unfortunate situation that Christian finds himself. What a crazy way to start this episode. I mean, this episode was a pretty Christian Hubicki heavy, which I'm a huge fan of. But how do you think that Christian prepared himself, knowing that was coming down the line?
It's one of those moments where you know that you could get buried by the edit in something like that, or they could treat you very kindly. But at the end of the day, you just have to own what happened, because that was you being real and authentic in the moment. And so I think he probably didn't sweat it too much, because he's Christian Hubicki. He's gonna be charming no matter whether he poops his pants or not. And that's such a side of Survivor that doesn't always get shown. But going to the bathroom is a thing. And there were so many close calls I had on season 49. You are going days and days without eating. And I know this is early game for them, but after a reward challenge, it activates your gut. And your body was previously in this starvation mode. So it was always a double-edged sword winning a reward challenge, because on the one hand, you eat and then your brain fog dissipates and you can think a little bit more clearly. But then the next day, you start to feel hungry again. Your body's no longer in that starvation mode. And then you're within 15, 20 minutes of eating any real food. I had to run for that ocean. And there were a couple close calls. Christina will tell you, there was a moment during a reward challenge where I was like, I'm about to do what Christian did on live TV. I came several times. Yeah, actually, even the very first episode, my very first Matt Chat, I went too hard on the buffet at Ponderosa before the game started, and you're on the wooden boat, and it's just doing like this. And I remember standing there, and that's the first time you hear everyone talk. And I was like, I'm going to poop my pants. That's my first impression with everyone. And I'm just clenching, holding it in, and I blacked out. So that's why I chose the water portion of our first Marooning challenge. I was like, if anything goes wrong, at least Mother Nature can disguise it.
That is crazy. I don't think that we've seen things like this kind of, but it was highlighted so much that this happened to him. And you're right, he is so charismatic. He is Christian Hubicki. If anybody can pull this off, it's him. If there's anybody that could make pooping their pants endearing, it is Christian Hubicki. But what a wild way to start the episode, but also what a roller coaster of an episode for Christian, because that's how we start off. And then we go to him finding the idol, giving the idol to Aubrey, and then also doing this heist with Rick Devens. It's just so much happened in the low lows and the high highs. Here's the question. If we're reading into the edit, can somebody who poops their pants in the edit go on and win this season? Do you think that that's something that the editors want to show people? Is this an endearing low point, or what do you think? Do you think that's something that can actually happen?
Oh, yeah. No, I wouldn't read too much in the edit for that, because like the famous book says, everybody poops.
Everybody poops.
And I think it's just a real human moment. And one of the reasons I love Survivor it's my favorite of all the reality TV competition shows, is because I just feel like it focuses on the human elements a
Mhm.
lot more. And it's probably because when you're out there on the island, it's all human, it's all raw. You're never looking your best. You're never, you're dirty, you're smelly, you're hungry. You're kind of, the whole point of the experiment is to see what do people do when like everything else is stripped away,
Mhm.
including their dignity sometimes. Like, how do
Mhm.
they react? And I think he handled it very, very well. I loved him turning to the camera and just being like, you're not gonna, this is not gonna be pretty, like letting them know. But of course they're not gonna look away. They're like probably zooming in, like, yes, this is what we're here for. So I loved it, dude. I'm understandably, probably not surprisingly, a huge fan of Christian, as a fellow engineer and scientist. So I have a soft spot for him. So I'm a little biased.
I mean, I Christian Hibiki is genuinely, and I've said this many times before, my favorite person to ever play Survivor. Like and this was before season 50. Like he just brings me so much joy, and we're seeing that a lot this season. Like I think he has fun when he plays, and a lot of people have fun when they play, but he just is something like, I don't know, just the way people want to play with him. Like, in the first episode of season 50, we had a very similar situation to Gabby when Gabby said, like, do you want to play with me? And he goes, oh, in the sand in season 37. But then also in, season 50, that first episode, Rick Devens is like, I want to play together. Let's play together. People want to play with Christian Hibiki. Why do you feel that is? What is the draw of like working with Christian Hibiki?
So, as someone that works in the engineering field, and I work with a lot of Christians. I went to school with folks that are exactly like him, and I'm kind of a unicorn a little bit in my field, in the sense that I don't always like come across as someone that is an engineer and big nerd like Christian at first glance. But the thing that's so endearing about him is a little bit like you said, like the childlike excitement that he brings to things. He's unabashedly himself. He's very authentic. I think. I mean, I know that people ham it up when they're out there, especially on a returning season. You kind of know what character you fit into, but I just genuinely think that he's the type of person that would be like that on a game night. Like, he'd be like, let's come over, let's play a board game. And then he would probably, like, as you're grabbing some chips in the kitchen, pull you aside and be like, yo, let's you and me, and like just have fun. Like, I don't know. There's just something very endearing about it. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. He's not
I
putting on this like false bravado or anything.
Exactly. And I think that there's something interesting. So I really love talking to really intelligent people and listening to really intelligent people talk. It's like I love it. But I think that Christian makes things accessible. He is incredibly intelligent, and the way that he like describes like talks about things and describes things, it doesn't feel like he's ever talking down to anybody. I think that's one of the reasons why people like me love him, but also why people want to work with him, because you're working with, like, because I think that people who are that intelligent could make it seem like, oh, everyone else is beneath me or whatever else, but he seems to want to find a partner and work with that person. It's and he'll explain why he thinks something might be the way it is or why he wants to do that. But I do feel like there's a give and take in the relationships, and I think that is, I don't know, I think that's probably why I feel like people might want to work with him. And he's also, great TV, and so it doesn't hurt that your number one ally is somebody who's probably also going to get a lot of airtime also.
Absolutely. I mean, there's that, and then I mean, he's a professor, right? I mean, he you can just see the sparkle in his
Mhm.
eye when he starts teaching someone something, and I think that's where his passion comes from. And I think if I had to distill his charm into one word, I think it's that he's passionate about what he does, and he doesn't hold back. A lot of people, I think, worry about what other people might think. I
Mhm.
don't think Christian has that same filter at times. And I think he's just, what I'm passionate about is what I'm into. And that's what I'm going to talk about. I'll never forget during that last challenge, he said, because of the parallax, he was talking about why the ball looked like it was in an apparently different position to someone versus the other position. And like, as an engineer that I took an astrophysics class, like parallax is how they determine the distance of like stars from far away based on their change. Anyway, it's like, it's crazy. I just love that he said that. And I was like, there's a 0% chance that anyone understood what you just said there. But I appreciate that you dropped that little bit of engineering terminology into it. I don't know. It's just like, he's Christian.
Yeah, he's Christian Ubicki. Now, what do you think about his and Rick's alliance, and also Emily as well in there? It seems like obviously they're having fun coming up with really interesting ideas. Do you think that this is going to be a long-term alliance, and that they're gonna, if they can come back together, work together?
I think if I'm Emily, I would feel a little bit uneasy because it just seems like the bromance that's going on between Rick and Christian is just so much deeper. And maybe they're hiding it pretty well out there on the island. But
Mhm.
obviously, as a viewer, we're getting to see the Captain Kirk and Spock thing. I was like, bro, okay, these guys are locked in. I think they are pretty ride or die. But this is not only just Survivor, but this is Survivor 50. And this is a time where I think a lot of people are trying to do something different, and they're trying to really establish a name for yourself, because winning a season or doing well in a regular season is huge. It's a big accomplishment. But imagine doing it against
Mhm.
the best of the best, or some of the best to ever play. And so I would not put it past any of them to, if they saw an opportunity to advance their game, like, you notice someone at a certain point, they become expendable, or you're like, I think it's my mileage, or it's like too big of a target for me to still be with Rick, or vice versa, right?
Mhm.
At a certain point, being a duo that's that obvious could work against them. So they might have to start taking shots at a certain point. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm here for it. I hope the duo rides real far because it's entertaining as hell.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Speaking of duos, we also get this episode, Camilla finding out that Kyle is no longer in the game, was medically evacuated because of his Achilles. That was a moment. I mean, obviously that was in some of the photos that were shared early on. And it was her crying, and I said this is going to be a difficult watch, and it absolutely was. That was really heartbreaking. And what's interesting also is, I don't know if you noticed this, she didn't have any confessionals this episode. Obviously, she had a moment at the mat chat, but I feel like the episode in which her counterpart, her other half, gets medically evacuated, I feel like we would be hearing from her, but we didn't hear from her, which is a very interesting thing. I mean, there are a bunch of people who did not have confessionals this episode, but how did you feel watching that moment, seeing Camilla realize Kyle was gone?
I mean, it kind of reminded me of when Jake was medevaced, and also like they're just, the mat chats are so emotional, and also just such a important data gathering moment for you as a tribe, because the only time you see the other two tribes are in those moments right before a challenge and right after. And so, I mean, seeing those real raw human moments, I'll never forget. I mean, on my season 49, Kella, the blue tribe, they were just like, they were losing everything. Their back was already up against the wall. And watching them pull up and their boat is even emptier than you would. I was like, did two people get voted? I was like, what just happened?
Mhm.
And seeing how emotional they were. I mean, even if like there's a part in your head that's like, okay, that's one less person that I have to beat. Like, and especially someone as good as Kyle, like
Mhm.
his allies are probably dying inside, like, no. But for everyone else on the other tribes, like it's kind of like, okay, like, you know. But yeah, it was tough to watch. And I think that their friendship in real life, and the bond they formed in season 48 is so genuine. And I felt for her. It's like hard not to kind of like empathize and tear up a little bit. I was tearing up. Like, yeah, it's
And
tough.
then they have to get right into a challenge, but not before coach decides to clear a little bit of the air. We know that the story is being told that Ozzy's not happy that coach stole the key, and coach wanted to clear the air there. Is that something, do people typically take it on upon themselves to like talk at Matt Chat, or is it usually like you're prompted by Jeff? What was that? Is that just like coach being coach, or what did you feel about that moment?
I think that was a moment. It's very similar to tribal. A lot of things are open-ended questions, and it's like you can take it and run with it as far as you want to go. So sometimes a player has something off their chest that they want to cross-pollinate. That's the one chance you get to cross-pollinate ideas and plant seeds with the other tribes, because everything else is speculation. You see how well people do in challenges, you see how they communicate, and you try, like, there's not a lot to do out there on the island. There is, but there isn't. And like one of the biggest topics is like speculating who's working with who's on top. And it's always interesting to me when people take the ownership to step into the spotlight, because you always take it with a grain of salt. You're like, okay, it's like a PR moment. Like, are they doing damage control? Obviously, they're putting themselves out there. It's like high risk, high reward. So when coach stepped up to drop that, I mean, it was very calculated, but like, part of me wonders, like, dang, is that going to like come back to burn him? Yeah, I think it's like all about controlling the narrative. And sometimes you can sense, especially if you've gone on a journey and you know that you lied and like things might be getting out of your hands. Sometimes you want to steer the ship a little bit. So you'll drop a little nugget and plant a seed of doubt that now maybe the people that were, like now there might be like, oh, maybe coach was telling the truth. Like, or maybe they didn't buy into it, but at least it's like enough chaos to cause people to question things.
I also think that moment is really interesting because also, it's the rivalry. We're seeing it rear its head again. Ozzy, of course, responds and, it's a back and forth and back and forth. And I loved the line that Ozzy said at the end where Ozzy said, yeah, I think you're playing exactly like you played in South Pacific. And I think that is such an interesting, and I made a video about this. I feel like people who decide that they want to play with honor or they want to play an honorable game or a game that is around integrity, paint themselves into a corner. Because then if you have one misstep, if you blindside one person, or if you lie about one thing and somebody gets voted out, or it ends up ricocheting onto somebody else, you're now an even worse person because you're not meeting these like standards that you set out for you put there yourself. You did not have to do that. And I think that, I don't think it's at all wrong what coach did stealing that key. That's why there was one key. It was a dilemma. They would have done separate keys if they didn't want that to happen. It was a part of it. But if you at all ever tout this, idea of being honorable, you can't steal the key. You can't have it both ways. But I'm loving what it's bringing to us. Like, I'm loving the drama that it's bringing, but it's just why you can't say that you're an honorable player, because then you're just stuck playing that way. And who wants to play honorably on Survivor? You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, totally. And like, it's kind of I was going to say the duality of coach, but I think it's kind of the duality of like anyone that plays the game is going to be a hypocrite at some point. At least for me personally, I didn't try to embrace like a universal one size fits all, like this is who I am to everybody. I tried to kind of match where people were at, which I thought served me pretty well when things got fluid. And I think when you try to paint yourself as like, this is me all the time, and then you're inconsistent, that's when it's like, oh, and you can do that one-on-one and be like, I'm loyal to the soil. I'm going to tell these other people but that's all a ruse. Like, this is real. But doing it in general, like, yeah, like it sets expectations. But I mean, I saw someone in the chat say like, coach is coach. Like he's a freaking legend for a reason. And one of the reasons why I like him so much is he's so human. Yeah. It's coach. So people don't care. It's like, dude, I think a lot of people at the time, I don't know. There are a lot of people, anyone that says like, oh, I'm like loyal and honest forever. You're like, bro, no, you're not. Like, yeah. I mean, you have to cut some throats at some point, and you have to lie to someone, because if you are with everyone, then you're with no one. Like, you got to be loyal to one person or like a certain group. You can't be loyal to everyone.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I think you can absolutely play a loyal game of Survivor because you choose, like, for example, Savannah, Rizzo, and Sophie played incredibly loyal games. That was a very loyal game to each other. They were very loyal to one another. They were not loyal to other people who they were cutting, but they never were saying like, hey, I'm going to be honorable, or like Kyle and Camilla. I mean, I think Kyle was maybe telling Joe that he was loyal, but I mean, he was loyal to Joe. He was loyal to Joe. He never actually cut Joe until the end. Or I guess he never actually cut Joe because Joe was sitting there at the end. But it's just like this interesting like dichotomy or duality. What's the word I'm looking for? Just, you can play loyal, but you saying you're honorable. It's like how I also say, like, never tell somebody that you're going to play an idol for them before tribal council, because if you change your mind, then you're now the bad person, even though you were going to give up your idol. And so if you change your mind and you're like, hey, I actually don't want to do this anymore, then that person's now burned. All you had to do is just keep your mouth shut, not say anything. And I think that's the same thing. It's like, it's similar but different. But I loved that we got this like this confrontation because this is what we want from a returning player season. We want this confrontation. We want this heat. And we got more confrontation this episode. It's a very confrontational episode. We saw a little bit little situation happen between Joe and Rick, which was also very heated, which apparently was even more heated on the island. But that was what did you feel about that situation?
I thought it was it kind of embodied why I think season 50 has been so good so far. Is you get these relationships that a lot of people on like a new season like mine, like we're unknown entities and like we're meeting each other for the first time, and like you're seeing these people and like you kind of are like, are they being real for me, or is this just like part of the game? But a lot of these people, with the exception of my castmates, they at least have seen them play on TV, or they've played with them before, or they have these relationships, friendships outside the game. So there's a lot more baggage and like layers to what's happening. So I think that like some people probably came in and watched Joe playing on 48 and were like, dude, if I end up on his tribe, this is going to be so frustrating. Cause like Rick is like, I want to team up with my boy Christian, whatever, and like do these crazy things. But I thought this was a perfect example of how there are, I don't think either side was necessarily wrong. It was like just like you need to adapt and you need to understand your audience. And I think Rick definitely got caught in a lie. I'm going to be honest. I love you, Devins, bro. But like at that water well, I know the edit is one thing, but it definitely looked like you could have played that off way better. So yeah. I don't blame Joe for someone who's supposedly getting pulled into this new alliance. And he just asks a simple question like, anyone's going to be a little bit paranoid about right before you go on a walk to go to get some water if they whisper to someone and they're cagey about what they just said, because clearly they were looking at you and know. And like that's the paranoia that comes with Survivor. And I think Joe, if you knew his game, he's probably coming in with a little bit of scar tissue. He says it about how he got burned by Kyle and Camilla and didn't know it. So he's
got a wedgie on live TV or national TV, I think is what he said.
Dude, totally. So like going in, if I'm like on the same tribe as Joe, I'm like, okay, he's going to be extra sensitive to people that are scheming behind his back. So like, yes, Rick's not wrong. It is more fun to lie. This is Survivor. Lying is part of the game, but also know your audience, man. Like Joe, he's not necessarily playing. He's just playing the game differently. And like, there's no one right way to play the game. That's why it's so compelling and has been going on for 50 seasons. But I always find it funny when people are like, my way to play the game is the best way to play. And I'm like, dude, I changed the way I played the game on 49 like 3 or 4 different times. It was like being in high school. I was like, new semester, new me. I'm emo now. New semester, like new day, new me. I'm hanging out with the surfer bros, you know, like you're just trying to see what fits. And yeah, but I loved it because that was we don't get that very often.
We don't get that very often. And, you know, I do think, you know, even though Joe's season filmed a year prior, you know, it's been almost about a year since he last played, slightly over it, I believe. He just watched it happen. He just watched how bad it was. It finished airing a week before they left. Like it's fresh on his mind. And he's like, wow, I got duped. I got played. And how can I make sure that does not happen again? And, you know, you're right. His wounds are fresh and he does not want to have a repeat. And obviously we know because the audience, we're seeing the edit. So we know he's not having a repeat. I mean, there's a duo, but does not seem to be as hidden. Rick and Christian it does not seem to be the same thing as Kyle and Camilla, but it was, you know, it's very interesting to see it be so fresh and how I think he's playing very defensively because of that. And I think that you can't do that. And I think I saw somebody in the comments, or maybe I need to find it. You know, I see both sides to the situation. Like I understand both sides. Also, Rick at the water well is why I feel like people should do improv classes as a training for Survivor. Because I just like come up with it. You need to be more quick on the draw there, my guy. But I honestly see both sides, but I'm really interested when Savannah said that was a more intense conversation. I'm like, it was pretty intense on the show. How much more intense could it have been? But, you know, but it seems like, why do you think they kept Joe over Savannah? Because if they all say that, hey, I don't think I want to or can work with Joe anymore, why are we cutting Savannah and not Joe there?
I think it's pretty simple. I think Savannah is someone that won her season. She also is clearly a competitive beast. Like she's crushing it in those comps. She's very like you. I mean, being out on the island and knowing her outside of the game, she's incredibly smart, incredibly charismatic, and fierce. And she's more of an unknown. But then you look at Joe and like, at least from 48 and like kind of what he's putting out there now, I know a lot of returning players are saying, oh, I'm going to do things differently. One thing I'm really interested to see is like how much they actually are able to deviate, because when you're hungry, when you're tired, your brain just tends to go into old habits, like, you know, because you're just not firing at all cylinders. It's easy to change your habits and change your behavior patterns when you're well fed and you have to actively think about it. But sometimes people revert into old patterns, not because they want to, but because they just have no energy left in the tank. And so, yeah, like kind of looking at that whole, gosh, what was the question again? I'm kind of went off on a tangent.
Why do you think that they cut Savannah when nobody seems to want to work with Joe?
I think part of it was definitely that they knew that she probably had an advantage and she didn't come clean with it. I was surprised to see that she didn't at least confide in someone, because that information is currency. I do think it was a good idea to not tell everyone, because especially I understand where she's coming from. I mean, dude, I think another thing that people probably have a hard time putting yourself in her shoes, but like she had 9-10 days between 49 ending and going back out. You barely have time to gain your weight. You start eating food again after the game and you're just all over the place. Your sleep schedule's everywhere. And you're also just like, holy cow. And then you jump right back in. So like, I don't blame her for having her walls up and like not feeling like I can trust people, especially players that might have relationships outside the game that she doesn't have. So she's coming in cold. I think she did the right move by saying, I won, because people knew, they figured it out. Like they're smart. And also, like, but at the same time, like information and like is something you can trade for loyalty. And so not telling everyone is a good move, but maybe telling a few select people that you felt like you could trust. I just think that I understand where Savannah's coming from. I think she probably was like, I don't know who I can trust yet. But I thought her read with Sari and Ozzy was like spot on. And that's one thing that Savannah always had, was great reads.
Yeah.
And so I think all of those things kind of played into why they voted her out. And like, I'm saying this as a viewer with limited information and like being out there. I know from our perspective as a viewer, it comes as a complete shock. Like they didn't really talk about Savannah as being a target that much. I know Sari kind of diverted a bit, but a lot of times the edit tries to subvert expectations and make it seem more dramatic. But I mean, if you saw it was a landslide. So like, it was interesting that Savannah didn't even play the block a vote. One thing I want to know is they said it was a secret block of vote, which is the same one that I had. And the secret word implies that she would have had to play it before going to tribal. I wonder if it was the same mechanic. I don't think we'll ever get to find out, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I think all of those things combined, she's just like a good player, and like, but she's unknown. I think that's
the unknown factor is scarier than the predictable person. I think you're 1,000% correct. And this is so great that you are on the podcast this week, because I was thinking about you and the secret block of vote specifically, because, you know, I was talking to a friend and we were talking about like Savannah specifically, like keeping her challenge prowess a secret, and also keeping the block of vote a secret, and kind of essentially just keeping a lot more secrets from people and not having the person. I mean, she even said, I don't have anybody that I'm clicking with this season. Like last season, we had people that I clicked, but nobody I'm clicking with, pardon me. And so I think, is the block of vote, because the secret block of vote obviously is an interesting advantage, but it's also not like a game shattering advantage. Is this the right advantage to share that information with? Like, it's not like it's an idol. It's not like something else. Is this like, you know, maybe don't tell everyone, like you said, maybe you tell a couple of people. I do feel like that could have built a bridge, but then would it also seem like you are being more untrustworthy? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think, gosh, it's so hard, because like at first when I came back after I won my advantage, I told people that I had an advantage, because I was like, there's no way that they're going to believe I lost my vote. I had been doing pretty well in the challenges up until then. And I just kind of read the room, and I was like, people are going to know that I have something, but I don't want to tell them what it is. And so I'd rather let their mind go wild and think it's more powerful than it really is. But for Savannah's case, I mean, she came back with the same one. That type of advantage is way more powerful late game when there's fewer people, especially in our situation where there were two tribes that were clearly like
Mhm.
I guess it appeared to be this at the way, like two distinct sides. And so, like
Mhm.
in that case, 3v3, you have a tiebreaker, that block a vote becomes critical. Early on in the game, I kind of get why, yeah, she probably was like, it's not like the biggest thing, but at the end of the day, information's information and it's just showing trust. It's just showing like, hey, I trust you to not go tell other people. This might not be the biggest game changing type of advantage out there, but I'm confiding in you. And I often wonder, there were a couple people that like continually would pester me and like ask me over and over. And I was like, they know, like they figured it out. And that's why they're asking. And I wonder if like, obviously like Devin's clocked it right away and some others did, but at a certain point, sometimes you just got to tell people and you take a leap. And it's so hard because in that moment, especially going back to back, your guards are up. You just revealed you're the winner. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know. I don't know if she hid her challenge prowess that well. You guys all saw that freaking
That
dive.
dive. Yeah,
That was the
iconic.
thing I remembered in 49, dude. Like, I don't have any info on Savannah other than what she says in Matt chats, but she was great at everything. And I was like, she's going to be a freaking problem when we get to the merge if she makes it that far. And I know people were probably thinking that too going into it. So it's hard. It's so easy to say woulda, coulda, shoulda, especially
Yeah.
from the comfort of home. And I often wonder, like, what would I have done differently? And I can't say definitively, but I probably would have told someone, but that's so easy to say in retrospect.
Yep.
Yeah, I
And
don't
there's
know.
another thing that goes in with these returning player seasons because the reality is there are going to be conversations that happen before the season, right? Like pre-gaming before the season on returning player seasons is a reality of the game. And Savannah, Savannah and Rizzo have kind of both an advantage and a disadvantage because that advantage then becomes a disadvantage. Like the advantage is the unknown. You can kind of lie, you can make things up. They don't know how you played. But that then becomes a disadvantage because people don't like to play with an unknown factor. You see what happened. I don't think anybody ever wants to be JT on Heroes versus Villains, right? They've seen it happen. JT got played for a fool. It's not JT's fault. Why would he? How would he think? How would he know
How
that
would he know
Russell
that
is
Russell's
the
gonna?
most iconic villain of all time? How would JT know that? He wouldn't. I give him a lot of grace for that because how would he
That's such a
know?
good point, dude. Yeah, because it's for all they know, Savannah's a Russell.
Yep.
I mean, I thought Jenna's confessional where she's like, "This isn't Gen Pop. You had to get blood on your hands to get here." I mean, Savannah was soaking in it. I mean that as a compliment,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like they probably clocked it. She came in. She's just very fierce. There's just something about her that I really admire in her like ferocity, but
Yeah.
that sometimes is hard to hide. And I was actually really curious to see um, how like her and Rizzo were going to play because I'm not saying they got lucky by being paired together. I think two like minds find each other and work together, and like having that person you can trust, like you're Christian to your Rick Devens, and
Mhm.
like that is so invaluable. And I had MC on Hina, and unfortunately, in that split tribal, she was booted, and I had nothing. I couldn't do anything about it. But we were trying to replicate what Kyle and Camilla did, and like nobody on my cast really knew what was going on. And when that episode aired, where she gave me or told me that she had the idol, so many people texted us like we had no idea.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, we didn't tell you guys later because it never came to be. But like
Yeah.
having that person that you really can trust, it's so hard to find. And I think that Savannah just like coming back on a new season, like both Savannah and Rizzo, it's tough, dude, because like these are people that know each other. And
Mhm.
like you're the unknown person. And so yeah, I'd rather work with the devil I know,
Mhm.
like a Joe. Like it's easy to maneuver around. Joe's gonna do what Joe does.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, that's gonna be epic. But if Joe can but Savannah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is she
100%.
lying? I don't know. I don't know anything about her. Maybe I'll
100%, 100%. Is it interesting watching people that you just played with essentially play again?
yeah,
Without are you seeing a lot of similarities in their game style on 50 to how they played on 49?
I am. Yeah. I think it's a double-edged sword, right? So it's a disadvantage to not to be an unknown entity, right? But it's also an advantage because you can replicate parts of your game from
Mhm.
the previous season and nobody knows what to like really expect. I am not surprised at the first impressions that folks had with Rizzo. I had the same exact first impression. I was actually at his watch party in New York for the premiere, and it was so funny because I saw Colby being like, Rizzo's annoying as hell, and that was my first impression of Rizzo too. I love him to death. Like we're like he's my boy. I'm rooting for him now. I mean, now that Savannah's out, but like that was my first impression. So it's like funny watching other people react to people, and I feel a little bit validated, but like Rizzo grew on me for a reason. He's a good, endearing dude. Like, yes, he's younger. I'm 36, he's 25. So there's an age gap, but at the same time, like he's very endearing once you break through that layer that is really just a generational gap. And like also seeing Savannah just comp hard. I'd love to see her play again because like I wonder if she has it in her to dial it back. But I just like, I get it. Like sometimes you're like, I need to not, if I win, I got to win not so convincingly because otherwise the target's going to be so big.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard. Like your heart and soul, if you're a competitor, you're like, I just want to crush these people. And I think that there might have been a little bit of a chip on their shoulders going in from 49 being like, I got to prove to these greats. Yes, I'm here. And they're like, he's here for a reason. She's here for a reason. But I got to show them so that they'll keep me around. And so it's like so hard, dude. Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I think it's, you know, we're seeing, you know, speaking of Rizzo, there was a very big conversation. In the first episode, we saw Colby go from being annoyed by Rizzo and then being enjoying Rizzo's presence and, you know, feeling a father-son relationship there. And then in this episode, we kind of revert back to his original impression because we are seeing him and Colby and Q talk about Rizzo not helping around camp. And I think this is a very interesting change, a very interesting discussion because I feel like it's a discussion we don't typically have in the new era. And, you know, we're also seeing all of these old school players be like, wow, new schoolers don't actually, new era don't actually care that they're living on the ground and like they don't actually, you know. And we see Sam Phelan in the chat BCC group was saying like, yeah, we just slept on the sand, like nobody cared. On your season, like, did you guys care about your camp and how it, like, did you put a lot of effort into making the shelter? Like, what is that true that new era people don't really care about anything?
I think it's a generalization, right? I think that what is shown is like that's not as big of a factor in deciding who you're going to work with and who you're going to vote out and keep in the new era. I think that's absolutely true. That being said, I love Rizzo and like I joke around with him and like a lot of other people. It's not just Rizzo. There were a lot of people on our season that didn't do jack shit, and it was so funny because like Hino, I think, was built different. We were like suffering from success in the sense that like we kept winning. So but we kept
winning. We're so strong. Like, oh my God.
Dude, I went into it thinking, I'm not going to lie. And this is what's so interesting is like looking at the pre-tribe makeups, you're like, oh, this tribe's going to be the disaster. This one's not. And then you see it play out. I remember seeing, you know, Jason and MC were a godsend from like an alternate perspective, because I think if we did not have them as alternates, we could have very well been that disaster tribe. So when I came in hot, knowing that yellow tribe's always a disaster. And I was like ready to cut people. And I was like doing too much too early, and you have to adapt. And so what I'm getting into is like, that being said, like I thought, I mean, I didn't go out there to play camp, but I didn't go out there to also like suffer unnecessarily. I'm like, dude, if it's raining, you're going to want a shelter. And one thing that Kella never did, the Blue Tribe on season 49, and that was the merge beach, and it killed me, is they did not build an elevated floor of bamboo for the shelter. It was all in the dirt. And that's well and fine if the weather's great. But as soon as it starts raining, the water starts seeping in, and then you get this little mudslide, and then next thing you know, you're just like waking up and you're just like gross and you're wet and you can't sleep on the beach because otherwise you're getting pounded by rain. And then rats, dude, we had freaking rats crawling all over us, and it was so funny because you can't see them but you feel them. And after a while, it's like the same thing as on the beach. Crabs will come up and pinch your feet at night and wake you up, and after a while you're like, oh, it's a crab. But at night up in the shelter, I was like, this is not a crab. This is some mammal. And like, I don't know that much about indigenous animals in Fiji. So I was like, this could be anything. And you're kind of like more afraid. But all that is to say, it's so interesting because when we got to the merge, our Hina tribe, I think we realized how little the other tribes did. Like, they didn't look out for each
Mm.
other. Anytime Hina, we'd go out and get firewood. We were like, anytime you go for a walk, you bring back firewood or you bring back coconuts, or like everyone was pitching in to like a certain extent. Like Christina at one point was like, I'm the camp mom. I'm going to hang up the clothes to dry for you guys, which was awesome. But then we ended up getting a swap, and I was with Alex, who had just gone through the ringer. It was Alex and Soph were the last two people alive.
Yeah.
And he ended up with mostly Hina people. And I was like, bro, this looks like fire fest out here. Like, dire. This is rough. This is rough. Like, what happened? And he's like, dude, he was like, he's like, I was surprised at how well you guys looked out for each other, because he's like, we didn't look out for each other. We didn't care about each other. We didn't care if, oh, I'm sharing this coconut, or what the shelter looked like, because we were just like at ends, like from the get-go. And then I think on Hina, it's just so much of it kind of boils down to like reading the room. And so to go back to your original question, I know I'm monologuing super hard, but
I
like,
love it.
Rizzo, for example, I don't think it's going to hurt him in the long run, but I do think that, like, especially in an old school season, if someone values working hard at camp, sometimes you got to adapt and be fluid and like match that. And maybe you got away with it on 49 where it wasn't as prioritized, but like, it was very funny because like Rizzo was super lazy in my season. I love him to death. He will admit it. Bro, like, never started a fire, never grabbed firewood, never opened a coconut. And he's not the only one. So it's not just Rizzo, but it was noticed by the Hina tribe. But at the end of the day, I was like, that's not what wins the game. And so I kind of get where he's coming from. So you just got to read your audience and the people you're playing with. And if it becomes that big of a deal, then yeah, maybe help her out around camp. But I don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal for him.
I also think there was an interesting, I think it was Q who was saying this in a confessional. And he said, being lazy around camp is what gets people voted out. And in that moment, when Q said that, Ryan was sitting next to me, and I turned to Ryan and I go, also caring if people are being lazy around camp also gets people voted out. You just
totally.
They're both not good, but if you make too big of a deal about it, people can be like, well, this is really annoying and it's drawing a target on my back. Let's figure out a way to get somebody out, get him out. And so I think obviously people, like, emotions are going to be high, things are going to happen, but I do think that caring a little bit too much could be a bad thing in the future for Colby and or Q.
Totally, dude. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I could give two shits about if someone's pulling their weight at camp. All I care about is, can I trust you with my life in the game? Do I feel like what you're telling me is true? Can I confide in you? Can I work with you? If I can do all of those things, I don't care if you're the worst provider ever. This is a game to win $1 million. And yes, I'd love for things to be more comfortable, but like, even if it was 39 days, I wish I had to do 39 days. I think it would have been way more fun, but like either way, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a finish line, whether it's 26 days, 39 days, at a certain point, anyone can suffer through something. And after you've gone through the first week, you're like, all right, whatever. I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be wet. I'm going to be cold, but who can I trust? And like, that's the part where, so I don't know. I'm rooting for Rizzo. If you guys couldn't tell, I love the guy. And it's one of those things too, like looking at Rizzo and Savannah, like they ended up on a tribe together and they worked so well together. But sometimes there's a little bit of luck in Survivor and getting paired up with people that you vibe with, that you feel like you can trust, and like good players can work with anyone.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think that is interesting. Again, we heard Savannah say, I'm just not vibing with anybody. And I think that's a really important thing. But, speaking of vibing with, I want to talk about Genevieve, because really, I say the episode started with Christian earlier. It really started with Genevieve and the pink tribe. Yes, I said it. It's pink. This is the hill I'm dying on. I'm like really upset that in the first episode they called it purple, and I'm like, it's not purple, it's pink. But when Kyle gets a medevac, also I want to say, shout out, Kyle was in this episode. We love that for him. We love that he's in 2 episodes. We just see him on the boat leaving. But Genevieve is, obviously going through it. She's saying like, I am very upset I'm so sad for Kyle. He does not deserve that. But also, where does this leave me? And she says, I hate that I'm thinking about my game, but what does this mean for the future? What do you think this means for Genevieve, losing basically her number one and other two people on this beach, Colby and Q, don't have votes? How do you feel like they're going to be able to move forward?
Well, without knowing that a swap's going to happen next, I would say like they're definitely in hot water. And their best move is to, if they're still on the same tribe and like know that they're down 2 votes and they lost one of their allies, is their best move is probably to pit the other two together, and obviously not let them know that they're losing any votes, and like hopefully convince one of them to flip or something like that, because you're gonna have to win someone over. But those things happen a lot. I mean, that's why, I mean, people like, it's so silly, but like the Uli versus Hina on the red versus yellow for 49, like in hindsight, it's like so silly because you're gonna have to work with these people when you get to the merge, but you want numbers when you get to the merge with people that you trust. And so it did not surprise me that like Jason and Matt on my tribe were picked up. But like when that happened, that was a big blow to me because I was working with both of them. And then also like seeing the split tribal where MC didn't come back. And so like what that's going to do is like, it's going to force Genevieve to have to like, you're going to have to be fluid. You're going to have to change. Maybe you get a split, you get a swap and you get to go meet new people and cross pollinate and hope that you don't get a bad flip. But like, that's what I think separates really good Survivor players from like great Survivor players from good Survivor players. Is like, great Survivor players can adapt, and like when they lose their number one or lose someone, you can't ever put all your eggs in one basket and hope that it's going to take you to the end, because things happen. And being able to just like be fluid and go with it. That's why I'm like, Rizzo definitely got a lucky break. As much as it sucks to say that, like I wish Kyle didn't get medevaced out, but like being able to fill that spot in an alliance like that, I think sometimes you get lucky breaks in Survivor, and like a lot of people don't realize that. Like, you know.
It's interesting. It was lucky for Rizzo, unlucky for Genevieve. And I think this is an interesting, Daryl Seymour says Genevieve has a heart. She also kept saying sorry while it's neatly going through Aubrey's bag. I thought that was a very funny moment, going through Aubrey's bag, looking for an idol. I mean, I think that's a great read. Somebody's taking their bag a lot with them. Yeah, go through their bag. Are you pro going through bags, against it? Like what, neutral?
So here's the thing about bags on Survivor, and I didn't appreciate this till I was out there, but that is like your home. That's like all you have. You have nothing but the clothes on your back and whatever things you have in your noggin leading up to it. And like, you feel so violated. Like imagine if some burglars broke into your home. They didn't even take anything, but you just notice things are moved around. You're like, things are either haunted or someone was here. Did they poop in my toilet? Did they flush? Did they upper decker me? Like, it's just like a violation of privacy. And like out there, there's no privacy. Your only sanctuary is your bag. And what's really funny is this didn't make the edit for 49, but I lost my shot in the dark on day 2. Because we were sleeping on the beach and it was like in my bag, and I was using my bag as a pillow and it slipped out, and look, we're on the sand. And I woke up in the morning and I was like, oh no. And I was looking around, and I remember Jason came up to me and he's like, what are you looking for? And I was like, oh, I'm looking for my hearing aid case. And he's like, what does it look like? And I was like, well, it's about, what the shot in the dark looks like. It looks kind of like that. And he helped me look for it. But at the time I didn't know if I could trust anyone. And like, but later on, they were like, I think Yellow Sophie Segretti found an extra one. And so they created a diversion. MC, Jason, and I were working together. They created a diversion, and I went through Sophie's bag. And so I've been on both sides. I've had my bag dug through, and I've pilfered. And at the end of the day, it's like, dude, it's a freaking game. Like, I mean, I dug through it, and yeah, you feel dirty, but at the same time, you're like, if it's between violating someone's bag and winning $1 million, I'm going for that milli. I'm not even going to second guess it. And so it's just like, I think at this point, people need to realize you can't leave anything valuable in your bag at any point. Because I know Genevieve, and everyone said like, oh, like this feels so bad. I feel so guilty. But like, if you felt that guilty, you wouldn't have done it. Like so like, I get it. But
you got to do it. You got to do it. And the craziest thing here is in the same episode, I don't know. I can't remember if it's the exact same day. We do get Aubrey getting an idol after the bag had already been gone through. So it is so fascinating that where she does end up with an idol. It's just they did it at the wrong point in the day. Do you think they'll go through the bag ever again, or is it now off the table? She doesn't have an idol.
I think it depends on how she acts going forward. I mean, if she keeps, if her behavior changes from the baseline that's been established, people might feel compelled to look through things. But I think she's pretty in the clear because they're like, damn, we already looked once. But granted, now there's a swap that's happening. Now there's new people.
Right.
If those new people see her moving the bag out, I think it's totally valid. Like I remember when Christina had her idol on 49, and I just kind of assumed that she always had it on her. I always kept my block of vote in my sock. It got all sweaty and gross, and I was worried that I would take it out and it would tear. I was like, if it tears in half, is it still good?
Is it like cash? Can I still spend it if it's at half? That's so funny.
Gross. But yeah, so I don't know. I think it'll be fine.
Now
she definitely
we do
dodged a
see
bullet for sure.
She dodged a bullet. Do you think Christian sent it to the right person? Do you think Aubrey was the right person to send this idol to?
Gosh, that's such a great question. I don't know much about Christian and Aubrey's like pre-existing relationship, but there was something that like that's the thing with the boomerang idols that like I kind of think is fun is on the one hand, let's say you're a recipient of the boomerang idol. You're like, hell yeah, I've got an idol. But then later on, someone explains it to you, like what the dynamic is. And like, you're like, oh, so they're kind of betting against me, or maybe they were, or maybe it's a olive branch so that we can work together in the future. Like if you make it to the merge together, but there's a lot of like elements to it that I think, oh gosh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know who else I would have chosen. I don't think it was a bad choice. But I just, yeah,
I think it's interesting because I think, one thing that I think that this boomerang idol is actually a very interesting, I think, twist, mainly because I like all of it, honestly, but the one problem I have with it is the player who gets the idol does not know who it's from. And I feel like why do you think that is? Do you think that's like just strategically they anybody could say it was from them? Like Rick in theory could tell if Rick and Aubrey are on the same, tribe at some point. He could say, "Hey, I sent you that." But then Christian would be like, "No, I sent you that." So like do you think that they should know who it came from, or do you like that it's kind of this unknown?
I like that it's unknown because the more guardrails you put up, the more possibilities you eliminate. And so what's so interesting about a game like Survivor is you can put the same cast on the same beach, and I guarantee you there's going to be a new winner every single time. I mean, the same group of certain people might make it to the merge, but like at the end of the day, like there's so much fluctuation and chaos involved. And I think it's much more interesting to see people try to suss out who might have given it to them and why than to have it like totally given to them, because not only do you now receive this and you're like, hell yeah, but now you're like, who gave it to me?
Yeah.
But if it just said that, like that removes a part of suspense, not only for the player, but like, yeah, it's like, it's gotta be so tough to be on production knowing like, I want to give them just enough information that it's like, we can follow what they're doing, but not too much to where it's like obvious.
Yeah.
It's one of those cases.
And I also think it opens the door for players to potentially say, they're swapped or whatever. And they're like, potentially going to somebody and be like, did you do this? And it not be the right person. Cause then you're exposing that you have an idol and you actually didn't find it. I find it, I think it's very interesting. And I just haven't really heard people talk about the fact that, they don't know where it's coming from. Aubrey does not know who sent her this. Ozzy does not know who sent him it. And so I find it, and the person who, it's knowledge is power, right? The only people that know are the people who sent it. And so I think this opens a very interesting kind of one-sided relationship, or like a one-sided dynamic that could be, beneficial. It could be not beneficial. So I think I actually really like the idol. I think it's actually a really interesting idol.
I think it's cool. I think understandably a lot of folks were like, oh, Billie Eilish, like what? And I'm like, I first off love her music, whatever. But like at the end of the day, like the mechanic of the idol, whether it's called the Boomerang Billie Eilish idol or just the Boomerang idol, I think is interesting because if I get this idol, obviously, I guess I don't really know. Gosh, if you receive it, you don't know like the strings attached to it at first. But then you talk to someone, let's say someone on your tribe finds it that's in your alliance and they have to send it to someone else. Then you now know that, okay, someone sent it to me, but maybe as like
Yeah.
like a trap, you know? And
Yep.
so it builds paranoia, and Survivor is a game of paranoia. And the more paranoid people get, the more likely they are to do things that are unpredictable. And like, that's why this season has been so fun, is like, we've seen these players play before, but everyone coming into a returning season is trying to do things different, because they're like, if I do the same thing, I'm going to get the same result. But also, like, people fall into old pattern. It's like, that's why I think the season's been so great, though, is like, people came to play, they came to play freaking Horde, and they're playing different, or they're trying to. And like, the higher this, as much as it sucks being out there, you're like, can we just get like a break? It makes for more interesting dynamics, and it's more of a challenge. And I think as a returning season, 50 should be really challenging. So I'm excited to see. But yeah, it's tough.
And, we're seeing very interesting and different gameplay this season. And, we're talking about the idol, but we have not touched upon the hiding of the idol at Tribal Council, which is, I think, one of the coolest things ever. That was so cool. This heist that Rick and Christian pulled off. Christian falls. It's funny. We start the episode with Christian pooping his pants. We end it with him falling, but falling for a reason. And then Rick ends up successfully hiding an idol at like, that Tribal Council is the coolest thing ever. How did you feel about this moment?
Okay, so first off, I freaking loved it. The first thing I thought of is one of the things Jeff says a lot on the On Fire podcast is like, I encourage people to play like it's their second time playing. And that's a hard thing. I remember thinking about that a lot before I went out there. I was like, what does that mean? And like, I thought I knew what it meant. And then you get out there and you just like, it's your first time. But what's cool about seeing these players play for a second time, or sometimes more, is they now are less worried about like, they're less nervous, and they're more willing to take risks like that, because it's freaking fun. And I was like, oh, I wish I would have like done something fun like that. And like, if I got a chance to play again, like, hell yeah, let's do things that are like interesting and chaotic that people won't expect. But I often wonder, like, it's probably rare for like a new player for the first time to do something that ballsy, because I think Jeff went on record at one point saying that they would never hide an idol or an advantage at Tribal Council, because they're worried about people ruining the impressive, beautiful set they have. And so now I don't know how many people know that little tidbit. The only reason I know that tidbit is because I read up on it, and I was like, oh, interesting. But if that had happened on my season on 49, I would have been like, well, damn, dude, like, I know it's not Big Brother, but expect the unexpected. Maybe that was like, maybe they're shaking things up. It's like, and so I think it's going to pay off for them. And dude, I was so stoked. Like I said, this, like, episode 1 was amazing, super nostalgic, but episode 2, I was like, how are they going to keep topping this? I don't know. I know. I'm looking forward to it.
I think that this is a really interesting thing, because I think there are multiple like payoffs here. There's the payoff of them playing it themselves, right? That would be a great payoff. I think it was Davey over on Threads who was saying like, they're playing with a blank check. Like, it's essentially a blank check. It's there, and then they can cash it in, and they can write what they need to write when they need to, which I think would be great. But also a very interesting and different payoff would be if somebody else found it. Like, that would be crazy. That would actually be crazy. And Steven, can I say, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to. When I went to Fiji, we got to see the Tribal Council set for 50. It was during the day. And it was, like, whenever we went, I don't remember what time we went, but like, I'm thinking to myself, what if it was there? Like, what if we were there and the idol was still there? Of course, we wouldn't have looked, like, we wouldn't have even thought to have looked for it. But I like kept thinking to myself, like, what if we were near a fake idol? I'm just like, that was just so cool. The whole thing is so cool.
Dude, I agree. And a part of me is wondering too, like, I will say this, I looked for idols constantly all the time. And like, none of it really made the edit. Cause like, unless you find it, I guarantee you, like, idols they're way harder to find. They're like hard to find, but they're also in obvious spots, which is super frustrating. Cause like, sometimes you'll be going, and like, you're looking under rocks and it's on a freaking tree branch or something that you passed 3 times. But when you're at Tribal Council, you're just focused on Tribal Council. And I can imagine if I had seen, I mean, it looked like it was right in the fire pit, like on the edge, like underneath. I don't know. Like, I'd be like, yeah, like I think if
the craziest
people aren't going to be looking for it, and people, even if they see it, they might not realize what it is.
What
So
it
I
is.
do think it's probably going to be Devon's or Christian that find it just because they know where to look.
It's so good. It was like this episode genuinely from top to tail was an absolute incredible episode. And I just can't even believe we're getting this kind of gameplay two episodes in. And you know what's interesting, Steven, you bring up, Jeff saying like try to play like it's your second time. It's interesting because Rick Devens this is kind of his third time playing Survivor, because what I mean by that is when he was first voted out of Edge of Extinction, he obviously got to come back. And I think when you come back, you are now playing, like if it's a Redemption Island situation or Edge of Extinction, you are then playing kind of like a second time player, because you know what it's like for people to be whispering around you and the vibes when you're voted out. You now know how that feels like firsthand because you've had your torch snuffed. And also you're kind of like playing with house money at that point. So I think that's what it's like the second time players, you're like, I'm so lucky that I get to be here. I might as well give everything, like Jeff says in that first episode. And you're playing with house money. Obviously you want to win the million, but you know what it's like to be on TV. You know what it's like to watch yourself on television. You know what all of this is like. And so you can play harder. And so Devens is he's playing like he's a three-time player, even though he's really only played twice.
He really is. And I think you kind of nailed exactly why this season has been so compelling to watch, is because every player is coming in with that mindset. Once you've been popped, and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Or like, but your fear of getting voted out for the first time, like it's like hard to understate. And I'll never forget, like my back was up against the wall for so many votes, and I got through so many to the point where even though there were many red flags leading up to my eventual vote out, I still was like, there was always like suspicious things. Maybe it'll work out now. And like, if I had gotten voted out, but got to come back in, oh my gosh, would I have let those things skate? Absolutely not. And so like, that's what's so interesting is now people know the signs to look out for a little bit more. But they also don't take it for granted as much. And like, it was so, I thought it was such a beautiful moment to see Savannah and her vote out reaction. Cause like it sunk in that moment as like, she never was actually voted out. And like, I remember what that felt like. And like, even though she won $1 million, I'm like, how bad do I feel for her? But at the same time, like you, as a human, you're like, damn. And so if Savannah comes back for a third time, everyone better be looking, she's going to be good. But like, there's something to be said, like definitely about you're playing with house money. You've already gone through the first emotional thing. It's like doing anything. The more you do it, the more confident you get on it. And so there's a huge advantage for people that have played once before, if not multiple times. Like you've seen it all. And you're like, what can you do to hurt me?
Yeah. What can you do to hurt me? That's very real. Now, are there any other moments in the episode that you want to bring up before we get to talking about episode 3 and what we expect with this swap situation?
Yeah. So actually I took some notes. I'm trying to say, I think we have most of them. Let me see here. The only other thing was just, it was really interesting for the immunity challenge they had. It was the exact same for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
It was very similar to the first one that we had. And I don't expect anyone else to remember it because it was like the first immunity challenge of our season. But it was like really surreal watching that play through. And I just was going to throw out that, snake is way heavier than it looks, and they didn't have to go through the mud, which was honestly a blessing in disguise, because when I went through it in the mud the first time, I smashed my head against the beam. I almost pulled
a bruise.
I almost pulled a bruise, dude.
Oh,
and I
no.
Damn. Yeah, I had like cuts, and it was so funny because I didn't address it. And so like that next episode, I just had scabs on my face, and people were like, what the hell did Steven do? Yeah, it was hitting the beam. I missed the first one, so I didn't pull a full bruise, but I pulled a half bruise because I pulled my head up too early and went bam right into it. So it was like interesting watching people do the same exact challenge, but not covered in mud. And that puzzle at the end is, I don't blame them for reusing it because it's a great puzzle and it's super challenging. 3 people. And I know they only show like a few minutes of it on the edit, but like, dude, it took like, I want to say like 20, 30 minutes for someone to finally win. There's so many drops and it's so stressful being in that power position. And so I thought it was very interesting that for both challenges, Suri was kind of in like the power position. And I wondered like, that's something in the back of your head too, is like, do I volunteer for this? Like knowing that it could be something that people hold against me, but or do I trust in myself enough to win? And like, it's kind of a testament to Cerie's game. I think she's kind of immune from the, you're not good at challenges, I'm going to get rid of you. It's like, I'm like, dude, no one cares about that when you're Cerie.
She's crazy. She is able to, and I even, I posted about this during the episode. I literally said, Savannah, don't go against Cerie. It's like betting against the house. Like the house always wins. And yes, she doesn't win, but she definitely is able to go far and use her social ability. The fact that she was not even mentioned this episode is wild. She was not one of the options. She is just a power player, and we're seeing her do her, pull it off yet again. It's actually crazy.
Yeah, I've seen enough returning seasons between Big Brother, Survivor, where you think that the obvious thing would be to get rid of the person that recently won or made it far, or someone that's really good at the game. But that is not the way people operate, because especially early on, you just want to make it to a point where now you have maneuverability. And a lot of times early on, it's anyone but me. Yeah. And so if you have someone with a proven resume like Cerie, like I just would assume there's no chance, at least like first, second vote. Like she's so good at what she does, number one, but two, she's got like this clout that I'm like, someone's got to be working with her. I love Jenna, but I couldn't believe that she was throwing Cerie's name out there before they even got to tribal. Anyway, yeah, so it's crazy.
But she's amazing. She is amazing. She's the best. Now let's talk about episode 3. So we've got the preview information. The name is called Did You Vote for a Swap? And this is what it says. A foreboding tree mail message leaves castaways hungry for information regarding an imminent change. Knowledge is power as the boomerang idol begins to rear their heads within tribes. Then past mistakes and baggage haunt players in their quest for redemption on Survivor 50. This is interesting because obviously we all knew a swap was coming, but the part of this synopsis that I find the most intriguing is the knowledge is power as the boomerang idols begin to rear its head within tribes. Because obviously we talked about it earlier. There are now people who have idols with people who know that it's a boomerang idol and know that information. And so I think that that is going to be a very, very interesting moment. And if this is the case, like, are people going to want to get rid of it to get their target off their back? I'm very excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Knowledge is power, especially this early on. I don't know if we've ever seen a knowledge is power in the pre-merge before, but I mean, think about this. Like one of the reasons people give the boomerang idol to people is because it does put a target on your back, knowing that you have an idol. And imagine stealing that idol from someone, and you kind of do put a target on your back. And like, I mean, Rizzo played it very well on 49, where everyone knew he had an idol, but he kept getting away with it. And so like, is that replicatable? Like repeatable? Who knows? But yeah, I did not read the synopsis. That was news to me, Tag. I'm like, damn.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's I'm like, now I have on my whiteboard, you guys can't see here, but I wrote down what the new splits are, and I'm trying to remember who has what.
Here. What I also so
Aubrey has it and Ozzy, right?
Aubrey and Ozzy have it. Do you want let's talk about the new tribes.
Yeah.
Want to? Okay. So the new pink magenta tribe. We have Stephanie, Ozzy, Emily, Christian, Mike White, Q, and Angelina. So here's who we have. It's kind of, you can see that a little bit. What are we thinking with this grouping? We have 3 David versus Goliath people. Stephanie and Ozzy are together. They're too old school. It seems like Emily is by herself, but she's got an alliance with Christian. And then Q does not have a vote. So what do you feel about this group?
So I look at the makeup of it, and I don't know what to really make of Mike White. I have not really seen much alliance talk between him. I know he's on White Lotus, and a lot of people are like, I don't want to vote him in because I want to do a cameo. But at the same time, you're like, I think people aren't really going to do that. I'm just joking. Right. But for real, like, I think it seems obvious that maybe 3 people in that David versus Goliath cast might team up. But I can definitely see a world where, I mean, they didn't start on the same tribe, all 3 of them. And, like I can see a world where they're not in the majority with 3. And so one of them might kind of say like, yes, I'll be with all 3 of you, but then they might split off. So I could see some of that happening, because especially when people are playing the second time through, they might take an opportunity. They're like, I played with this person. I know they're a threat. They trust me now. Like, let's take the shot now, because if they make it farther, I can't take them out later. Hugh also, if I am remembering correctly, does not have a vote for this next. And that's tough. And it's like, is he going to tell people?
And do we think that this is a tribe that's going to do well at challenges? I mean, Emily is like good at puzzles. Obviously, Christian is good at puzzles. Ozzy's performing way better than I thought he would in challenges. And we've got Q, who is, you know, pretty good at challenges, but not great. Again, Stephanie also pretty good at challenges. I just feel like this grouping of people, I don't think they're going to mesh well. Like, I feel like they could go to tribal council, because I think strength is one thing, but being able to work together as a team, I think, is maybe even more important than that. And so I think that this could be bad. I also think, you know, there are a lot of trios this season, you know, 3 people from season 46, 3 people from season 48, 3 people from David versus Goliath. I feel like a trio is a dangerous thing, because if a trio makes it to the merge, it ends up being a very large, it's you know, even more dangerous than a duo. I think it's a very large voting block. I could see this being potentially bad for Mike White or Angelina, not so much Christian, because he has this other bond with Emily. And Angelina, does she have a bond with Stephanie? Like, not really. She didn't really have much of a bond with Q. So I'm worried. I'm worried for either Mike White or Angelina, I think, mainly.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think of the people on that tribe, they had the fewest amount of airtime in terms of like who they're working with. Like, we don't know anything. Right. All I know is that Mike wants to keep entertaining people around, which I get, because like, dude, you're out there and 99% of what's going on during the day does not even make the edit. And you want to hang out with people that are a good vibe. And like, if it's not a good vibe, like sometimes you're on a swap and you're like, when is this going to end? Like, when's this, you know, you can only put a face on, like a fake face, for so long. And then the cracks start to show and you're just, yeah. And so I don't know, maybe Mike's like, damn, dude, I can only pretend to like these people for so long. I'd rather ride it with these people. But I don't know. Like, I sometimes think about like, okay, what if 3 people from my season were on and I was one of them? Yes, I would want to work with them initially, but there's also, especially if you didn't win your season, you might have a chip on your shoulder and be like, I want to prove myself. I want to separate myself from them. And I don't want to just, and so like, as much as it seems like there might be an advantage there with those 3 tribe members that played before, or not, you know what I mean? Like, same season.
Yeah.
I can definitely, I don't know, like, that's what's so dynamic about a returning season is like, we know these players, but they have past relationships, and those past data points are informing things in a way that new players like myself on a brand new season, I don't know anything about these people. So I'm not trying to create my own legacy or all these other little side quests. So it's like, I don't know, dude. I do see that tribe as, I mean, I don't know. Q and Ozzy are physical. Yeah. Just like, there's some puzzle beasts, but I could see them. That's what's so hard too, is like looking at my cast too. Like, you don't know like who's going to be good at puzzles or not. And you like try not to make assumptions. He ended up dominating. But like, when I first looked at us sitting on the match chat, I looked at the blue tribe and I just saw Jake and I saw some other people and I was like, damn, they're going to run it. And I was like, oh, and then they ended up being the disaster tribe. So it's so hard to predict, like you said, how people are going to mesh together. But those are the little things that are running through my head of how things might.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, you bring it up, you bring up a very good point. I mean, we talked about we talked about this a little bit earlier in the episode as well, that sometimes something that could be seen as an advantage in the game, in like a game like Survivor, it actually is probably more of a disadvantage. And I was actually talking to Kyle about 48 recently, and how he said, you know, if you have too many people, if your numbers are too big, you then are seen as, again, like a voting block. And so when he was talking about 48, he said we had to get rid of somebody. We needed to cut somebody at the merge, and that's why we had to vote out Charity. We had to be like, hey, here we are not so far together. And so I could see 2 David versus Goliath people voting out another David versus Goliath person to be like, hey, look, we're really not together. Look at us.
We're open for business.
Exactly.
Shop's open. Come on.
So I think that's a very, I think with these tribe divisions, we'll get into this. I don't really see, the dynamics are hard to read. It's a very random, very weird grouping of people. And I think it's going to be a very weird swap. So let's move on to Kahlo, the blue tribe, the teal tribe. we have Aubrey, Colby, Tiffany, Coach, Chrissy, Joe, and Genevieve. This is also an odd grouping. We've got Aubrey and Genevieve who are ops. Aubrey has an idol. So that's interesting. Oh, that's one thing we forgot to mention on the new Magenta tribe. What was it called? Vatu. Ozzy has the idol
vote.
and the extra vote.
And the extra. Oh no, he gave the extra vote to Sari. So Sari has that. That was one thing that threw me up when I was mapping it out. I was like, wait, who has what?
Right. But he does have that idol. He has the boomerang idol. And so, that's interesting because Christian sent the boomerang idol. So maybe that's the information that's being talked about there, that Christian knows what the boomerang idol is and Ozzy has one.
Totally. And like those idols are good till 5.
Yeah.
And so like until final 5, that's a lot of longevity for something like that. And that's what I'm most interested in understanding is like, obviously some people might know like, oh, someone else on my tribe found a boomerang idol and said to someone else and they told me about it and I received one. So now I understand that aspect of it. But there's like another layer to like, if you just got this gift from the sky and you're like, oh, I got this idol, I'm like bulletproof. There's a hidden layer behind it that like might throw people off. And so, Aubrey's got it. And we saw how much that meant to her. And like, if someone sent me one, I would totally break down crying. I'd be like, oh my God, this means so much. But yeah, Colby doesn't have a vote either, right?
Yep. Colby doesn't have a vote either. Colby and Genevieve were working together previously. So that's going to be interesting. Chrissy and Coach seemingly working together, at least friends with each other, because that's one thing we didn't talk about. Coach being pulled from the water because of his cramp, and then Chrissy massaging his leg there. So I think that might be a group, working together. Tiffany, I'm interested to see. So Colby, Coach, and Joe, I think could be an interesting, they probably will want to work together. Maybe they all have similar outlooks on how to play the game. But Tiffany, to me, is a wild card in this group. I don't know. We haven't seen a lot of Tiffany content, which I think is ridiculous. You have 24 people on the show, yes, but you're also 90-minute episodes. Like, give us more content from everybody. But I just don't know who she's going to want to work with. Is she going to want to work with Genevieve or Aubrey, or is she going to work with? I don't know. Who do you feel like Tiffany is going to go with?
Gosh, that's such a good question because I think it's a double. I looked at Tiff's resume compared to some of the other folks coming on, and I loved Tiff on her season. So don't get me wrong. I think she's deserving to be there, but she doesn't. It's like a blessing and a curse, right? Because you don't have as big of a target coming on your back. You haven't played with some of these players before. I mean, she was on Charlie's season, but like, aside from that, I mean, like, she is like the biggest question mark, which I think in a returning player season can be a huge advantage. But like, look at Savannah with 49, like that could be a detriment. And so I look at Tiff, and just kind of knowing how Tiff is, I could see her linking up with, I don't know. Like, I just don't know what to make of Aubrey at this point. I could see at some point Aubrey's going to need to start building bridges, and she clearly does not have one, which she's sus of Jen, like Genevieve. So like, I could see Tiff and Aubrey linking up, or I could see the opposite happening. I could see, I don't know what to make of Chrissy. It's so interesting. The whole, like, you're mothering the tribe too much dynamic. That is something that doesn't always make the edit, but like that kind of goes back to like these little micro transgressions that happen sometimes where you're not helping around camp too much, or sometimes you're helping too much in a way that people are like, dude, like, I love Christina, but I remember at one point in my season, we're the same age. And she was like, I'm going to mom you right now, Steven. You need to eat coconut. I'm going to do these things for her. And I was like, at a certain point, you're tired and you're like, I didn't come out here I don't need a mom. We're the same age. And like, it was interesting seeing that happen. Cause like from her perspective, that's how she adds value to relationships that she has, like being older, like being there to help. And like, she probably thinks she's building social currency, but you have to be able to read the situation and understand when what you're saying isn't landing. And I think it's so much harder than people realize. When you're brain foggy and you're hungry and tired, you tend to lean into things. And so I just remember Tiff was a firecracker. She didn't take shit from anyone. She was hilarious. She's a fierce player. So I can see her trying to pair up with someone like that. I don't know. What do you think, Teg? Like, who do you think she's going to land with?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like she could be the crux. Like, if they go to tribal council, she could be the crux. She could be the person that like two sides are trying to bring in. I could see her, begrudgingly maybe working with, Coach and Joe. I don't think that's necessarily a long-term relationship, but I do think that she might want to just like find the numbers, because I think that maybe Genevieve is somebody that she would want to work with, but I don't really see her wanting to work with Chrissy. And I honestly don't see her getting along. I mean, Tiffany can kind of get along with anybody, but I also kind of see her not necessarily wanting to work with Aubrey. But I could see her being like, you know what, let me just do this. Let me just work with these people. I don't have any clear number ones. I don't have anybody that I'm clearly have to work with. So I think to me, this tribe is the biggest wild card tribe. This tribe is the tribe. They could be great at challenges. They could be terrible at challenges. They could all hate each other. They could all love each other. I just don't get this situation. It's like hard to read.
That's what makes it so interesting. And like, as much as tribe swaps can be frustrating, because like you can get swap screwed, like it's tough. Like looking at Jason and Matt my season, like I don't know if there's anything more they could have done. Sometimes you just end up on the wrong side of the numbers, but these don't seem like there's like definitive swaps where there's like a clear majority from like. And also, I don't think tribal lines that you start with mean as much in a returning season as like maybe others. And so that's why I think these swaps are going to be interesting. And like, that's what's cool. I think that's why season 50 is hitting so hard, is like, there's not like, this is a wild card. Like, what is going to happen?
It's what is going to happen. All right. The last tribe, Sela, we've got Dee, Rizzo, Camilla, Rick, Cirie, Charlie, Jonathan. Now, I think this tribe is going to be safe. I mean, we've got a good puzzler. Camilla's great at puzzles. Rick's pretty good at puzzles. We've got Charlie and Jonathan and Dee, all of whom are strong in their own right in different kind of ways. Rizzo's not great at challenges, but I don't think he's so bad that he's going to bring the tribe down. Same thing with Cirie. I think that, and then, we don't have anybody with any lost votes here. We don't have anybody with the idol. We don't have anybody who knows. Well, I guess Rick knows what the idol is. The only advantage we have here is Cirie has that extra vote. So I think that this is this to me is the tribe that is probably going to be safe just on paper. But again, will they get along? I don't know.
Yeah, I look at this tribe, and like any tribe I see Jonathan on, I'm like, okay, they got the physical part down for the most part. I mean, you got to lift heavy things. Like he's just kind of a cheat code to get to the merge.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, yeah, like that's only one element of most challenges, and they mostly come down to puzzles. And yeah, I don't know. I look at it. I just keep going back to the edit, and like being on the show, I don't read too much into the edit, because like there were definitely times where I'm like, dang, like certain people aren't getting featured, but like I know what's going to happen later. So like I try not to put too much stock in it, but we haven't seen much of like Charlie. I don't know who Charlie's working with.
Yeah.
And like, I know, like, I just know what it was like playing with Rizzo. And so I look at this, and you can't see what I'm looking at, my whiteboard, but it's the list of people you just said. And I see Rizzo being out on the outs. Like, dude, not only was it on season 49, but like, I don't know, like I know what being on the season with him, he loved Devins. So I have a feeling, just because he talked about Devins when we played together, I could see him being like, he just loves good strategic gameplay that like takes risks. Like that was what Rizzo was so good at. He's like, it doesn't matter if I get 8th place or 4th place. I'm here to win and like play a good game and like whatever. And so like I could see him aligning with like players that are more in that mindset. I love Charlie. And like before I went out on the season for 49, I was like, what player do I think I'm going to play the most? Like I saw a lot of myself in Charlie. So like I love the dude, but I just like, we haven't seen enough for me to know what's going to happen. So yeah, like it's interesting. I think Cirie, I don't know, dude, she's just like so good socially. I just can't see, especially with the extra vote. You can use that to win new people over.
Yep.
It'll be interesting.
Camilla is somebody here. I also want to talk about her position, because I think that she's a very interesting player. I do not think she's somebody who's going to want to work with Jonathan, like with the likes of Jonathan. I actually weirdly think that because I think that she is a person who really enjoys chaos. She really likes, her favorite players are Philip, the specialist, Coach, and Q. Those are literally her favorite players from Survivor ever. And I think that she might actually, this is kind of a crazy take. She might actually want to work. Like I could see Rizzo, Rick, and Camilla working together because I think that she kind of wants to have a season that is the opposite of 48. And I think that those three together would be like the opposite of season 48. And I could honestly see Camilla want, if they went to tribal council, targeting Jonathan and being like, we don't need that. We don't need that vibe. Like, who cares? Like we lost with him. Why do we still need him? I feel like it'd be a very chaotic and crazy, but like could be interesting.
I agree. I think especially in a returning season too. Yes, having physical players that keep you away from tribal is always a good thing. At the same time, like if you lose with those people, even if they weren't the weak link, you're like, okay, am I going to continue moving forward with them and then have to beat them in the merge where it's like an individual game? I don't know. And I wonder if Camilla might be having some scar tissue flashbacks to be like, big dude, Jonathan, big dude, Joe, like, oh my God, like, and they're both pretty loyal, straightforward dudes. Like, I can definitely see that happening. And like,
and also like if you're not aligned with them and you go back, as long as you're not the one being voted out of tribal council, really, what's the harm of tribal council? I know it takes a lot of time and you can't relax at night, but it also gives you something to do. At least you're being entertained. You're not, just sitting around doing nothing. And so, I think if she has a group of people that she wants to work with, if they go back to tribal council once or twice, who really cares? If she's not working with Jonathan, cut him. So I think that would be a very interesting thing. I don't really see them going to tribal council, but that could be very interesting.
I agree. No, I think you're spot on. I think that's a super interesting dynamic that we could see play out. I'm interested to see what Charlie does because we just didn't see a lot of what he did. I could definitely see him. He just seems like a very social player.
Yeah.
That is like easy to, and he's like not overtly threatening from like a physical perspective in the way that someone like Jonathan might be. So like, Of course I'm biased. Like I said, I enjoyed his gameplay in 46, but like I could definitely, it seems like, I mean, he looked fierce. I was rewatching the episodes today and I remember episode 1, the premiere, when they're doing the match chats and like it was the first marooning challenge and they zoomed in on him and I've never seen Charlie look like that. And I was like, hell yeah, Charlie, let's go, dude. Yeah. Like he's coming in swinging for the fences. So like, even though we haven't seen him, I think that, I don't know. He came to play. That's what I read from that. So, and that's what's so cool about these returning seasons is everyone comes to play. Not that people on new seasons don't, but like, I think people have a different definition of what it means to play.
Yeah.
If they played before. And some people think they know what it is to play Survivor. Like, I mean, I went in thinking I knew and like, but like, then you're there and
whole different situation. Yeah.
Some people rise to the occasion. Some people fold. Some people knew what it was going in. It's crazy. So
I think this is a very interesting comment here from Daryl Seymour saying, I think Camilla is in danger. She has been invisible. The reason why I'm highlighting this is because I actually think, not to read too much into the edit, I actually think people who are having maybe not a very big edit are safe for a little bit of time because I feel like these are 24 people out of 751 people who have played Survivor. They didn't bring them back for no reason. They didn't bring them back to not give them screen time. And so I actually think that she might be fine for a little bit of time because she's not getting as much airtime, because they're like, well, let's focus on the people who might be going out early, give them the screen time. And then, when they need, when it whittles down to fewer and fewer people, then maybe, but also that's reading, the edit is never the same. It's always changing. That's reading into it. But I think it's going to be, I think it'll be interesting if that is the case, or if not, obviously we'll find out later, but something to food for thought, if you will.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm still here. I'm frozen because I had to switch webcams because my other one, I forgot to charge before this, but I have a backup.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. I'm still here.
He's back.
I'm back, but now it looks like I'm in a cave, which is exciting. I'm like Tony Stark. I'm going to build something to get myself out of here. But no, I think you're totally right. And like another thing about the edit too is I always think of it from the lens of they need to tell the story of the person that's getting voted out. And like, especially early on pre-merge, a lot of players, they haven't had a lot of time for like the audience to get to know them and like be invested and care about them. So especially it's always kind of like a telling fact when early on someone's getting a lot of screen time, like a disproportionate amount, when they really aren't doing that much, especially like you look at first boots, second boots, because like this person's on the show for a reason. Like you said, they're compelling, they're interesting, they're going to resonate with someone in the audience, and they're there to play. But at the same time, like they're like, the editors, I'm putting myself in their shoes. I don't want to speak for anyone on CBS, but this is what I would do if I was behind the keyboard. You're like, I gotta, explain, like tell the story of why they're getting booted and like who they are. And so I don't think it's a red flag to not have much of Charlie, much of Camilla, because I mean, they just haven't been as monumental or as like a big of a part in why people were getting voted out. And like Hina was a good example from season 49. I joked like suffering from success. Like we didn't get a lot of screen time because we weren't scrambling going to tribal. So they needed to focus on Kella and explain the why behind why those people were going out. So like, I always keep that in mind as a viewer, and it's really hard to turn that off. I love to suspend disbelief. I hate spoilers, and I hate that my brain's like this sometimes, but yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing that Camilla's not getting screen time. Also, she's really smart. And as much as it sucked to see Kyle go, this could be a blessing in disguise for her a little bit. Like now she doesn't have that threat of a duo.
Yep.
Hanging over her.
I think, she doesn't have to, they don't have to burn each other. I mean, obviously bad that Kyle went out, but yeah, you don't have to burn each other. You don't have to burn. So I think
I bet they were looking forward to burning each other.
I bet you're right.
I want to see who's the real guy, but yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
It's one less moral dilemma in a game of Survivor where everything you're thinking about just burns calories. It's one less thing for them to stress about. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Steven, this has been such a fun chat. We have one more thing that we need to do before I let you go, and that is the Alley Oop Award. Woo! Everybody go woo! Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Alley Oop Award is the award that we give at the end of the episode for the player that we think is setting themselves up the best for the next episode. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit different here because it's going to be a swap. So, and we just talked about how we don't really know how these dynamics are gonna go. But it was a big episode for a lot of people. So, who are you thinking you wanna give this to?
All right. So I know we call this the Alley Oop Award. I'm gonna rename it just for this one episode, and I'm gonna call it the Alley Poop Award because my boy Christian, yeah, he pooed his pants. But it takes a real man to poo your pants on TV and own it and make light of it and still recover. And like, dude, honestly, people are like, he's not a threat. He pooped his pants. Like, whatever. Like that brings your threat level down. I don't know. Maybe it was strategic.
It's a strategic poop.
But jokes aside, I do think that him and Rick, and like, I know the edit is like very heavily leaning towards them, but like, he seems like he's really set himself up. I do think he's one of those players that is very good at connecting with people. He's very social. He's very authentic. We talked about all this at the beginning, and all those things are going to play in his favor. And he's got that little planted seed. He knows where a lot of things are. He just has a lot of knowledge and a lot of relationships in the game. And he's teaming up with people that he's played the game with before. And I think if of those three, like, I don't know if I would go for Christian first if I had to flip on people. So I think he's set up pretty well.
I think you're totally right. I would also give this to Christian. I think that Rick, gave Christian a run for his money. But I think the reason why I'm leaning Christian here is because I think that Christian should have one of the biggest targets on his back. And yet, because of who Christian is, I think that he's been able to get away with it. I also think that he is kind of lowering his threat level with tripping at tribal council, which I know was a diversion, but I think there's a little bit that puts into people's subconscious about, oh, he's so goofy. Yeah, he's good at puzzles, but he trips and he poops and, blah, 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 blah. And I think that little by little, he's lowering his threat level, which could be really dangerous in the long run, and he could be very good for his game. But then also, he thinks about things so much, and he, gave the idol to Aubrey. And I think that there's a lot of really good things that happened for him this episode. So yeah, gotta go Christian on this one as well.
Yeah. And honestly, like, it's interesting that they took the Spock and Captain Kirk role, because the Captain Kirk role is much more, you're in the spotlight. So you're sometimes catching strays. So even though Christian probably agreed with Rick's take on Joe and like how he's difficult to work with, we saw him echo similar sentiments in his confessionals. Rick is the one that is publicly having those arguments and like, yeah, so like Christian's getting the benefit of like having that message
Yep.
being said without being the one to say it and get the blood on his hands in the event that for whatever reason he's without his Rick but is left with Joe. And so like he can say something like, oh, I always thought that was crazy. He has like damage controllability
Yep.
in a way that like, as much as I thought what Devin said was hilarious, I do think that, yeah, it's like different gameplays. That's why this season's been so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And, yeah, anyway.
It's been very, very good. Well, Steven, thank you so much for chatting. This was such a fun chat. We talked about so much. I mean, there was so much that happened, but we talked about so much. It was truly a blast. Where can people find you? Are you on Instagram? Where is the best place for people to keep following you and your thoughts on the season?
Yo, the place to find me is actually you need to dox me. Come find me. It's like the idol hunt for season 50, but come to Denver, Colorado and try to piece together with my stories where I live. No, I'm just kidding. My Instagram handle is at somewhat_Steven, Steven with a V. My autocorrectos does PH. I'm like, what the hell, Siri?
Your own autocorrect betraying you like that?
Dude, for the longest time, I had to actually go into the dictionary because I'm like, anyway, yeah, so at somewhat Steven on Instagram and also at Space Ram, all one word on TikTok. I'm not as active, or not TikTok, Twitter. Same thing, at somewhat Steven on TikTok. And yeah, like if you want to have space facts, but also hear, I have a lot of thoughts. And this was really fun. So,
this was a blast. You have some really, I mean, obviously you are great on your season, but you have a lot of really great takes. And, it's, again, I love listening to smart people talk. So I love likewise that you're able to come on.
No, likewise. I know when I first met you, I knew of your content before I even met you. So like, it's funny. You probably were like, oh my God, Steven was on 49. I was like, oh my God, it's Tag. Cause preparing for Survivor, I watched a lot of your stuff and like, yeah, no, it's an honor to be here. It means a lot. And it's always fun chatting with you and catching up. So thanks for having me. And I hope everyone's enjoying the season. And yeah, even if you're going to come roast me on Twitter, freaking do it, dude. I can take it. It's great.
You're killing me. It's so funny. For those who make sure to watch, it was a very 49 heavy week for us. Phil had Sophie Bellardi, Soph on the podcast yesterday. So if you missed that episode, you got to go check that out. And then tomorrow, he is doing a power rankings. I'm not sure who his guest is, but you're definitely going to want to check that out. Very fun new podcast that he's doing this season. And then one last plug, I had a Surviving the Fandom that I filmed. It was posted on Saturday and it was really fun. It was with Connor Hayes. He runs Threads, he is a huge Survivor fan. So that was a really, really fun conversation. We talked about 50, we talked about his fandom. So if you have not listened to that or watched that, make sure to go check that out. But other than that, thank you guys so much for listening to us on your Monday night. Here's to hoping episode 3. Here's to hoping episode 2 is the worst episode in the season, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. But thank you again so much, Steven, and thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your night. Bye.
Yeah, great to see you all. Take care.